It's the weekend. It's the Michigan Mailbag as promised. Here we go on this Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Saturday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. It is, it's the weekend. And as promised, we are doing the Michigan Mailbag. So let's get right into it, starting with our leaders and best. James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Are you concerned with the future depth at corner? Let's say Scott commits to Ohio State. Are you surprised Michigan is having to reach that far down the board for a second year in a row outside of Jair Hill? I wouldn't completely say, it can get concerning. It's not there yet. There's a lot of talent in the cornerback room right now. Yes, they also converted a wide receiver and Amarian Walker over, but for the next year, you have beyond this year, you have at least Will Johnson, Amarian Walker, Miles Pollard, who was a highly rated 3-star, in the sense of he had every major offer. He had like 43 offers. Cody Jones, who also I think could be safety, but he's been doing cornerback, and Jaden McBurrows, who is in a similar boat as now. Jaden could come on this year and then leave, right? He's entering year 3, but the rest, it looks good. Then Cam Calhoun, Jair Hill. I don't think Cam Calhoun was necessarily a reach. It's kind of looking back into that recruitment. It was pretty clear in kind of the aftermath that Michigan had been long recruiting him. That said, yes, they do need to bring in some bodies here. They have a lot of talent. It's not necessarily what you think or hope it could be. So getting Scott would be a priority. And keeping in mind, they did a good job with 2-3 stars in 2021 and Vincent Gray and Jamon Green, but I don't know that you win, as well as DJ Turner. I think that in order to win a national championships, you need more of the you need more of the Will Johnson types, because you're going to face those 5-star receivers more often. It's one thing if you do it against Ohio State and their cadre of 5 stars. Guess what? A couple weeks later, you're going to face another team that has more. And just when you go on the plane of like, okay, you can get it done once. Can you get it done twice? Can you get it done 3 times? That becomes harder and harder. Josh Barr at Jadicke, will you be reporting from the barbecue at the Big House, or are media not allowed for the event? No, we're not allowed at that event. So no, I will not be, never have been, never will be. It's just the nature of that event. My brother in metal, Michael Wolf at MWolf21. Do you think the offensive playbook will be more open sooner in the season rather than saving a lot of stuff for later in the year? I don't know what to think. I don't really know that I have like a thought of when they're going to do it. I'm going to say what I hope, and I hope so. I thought last year they needed to open it up a little bit sooner, but it worked for them. And I do agree with the methodology to some degree of, if we can run the ball against you with impunity, we're just going to do it until you stop it. I do agree with that to some degree. That said, if you're going to be able to get the Bryce Underwoods of the world and continue to be able to allure top talent to the quarterback position, you better utilize the quarterback position. I know I've said that before, but that's what they need to do. And I think that this year it would be a good thing if they can just put together a more high-flying offense and kind of change the narrative a little bit and make JJ your next Andrew Luck. I think that's a smart thing for Jim Harbaugh to do. Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. Do you have an update on the scoreboards? They're putting the paneling on. That's not my own reporting. That's a mixture of Alejandro Zuniga from the Michigan Insider and Clayton Sayfie, both who have taken strolls by the Big House. Remember, I'm no longer taking walks around the Big House every day like I was last summer, because we live in Fenton now, 45 minutes north of Ann Arbor. But they posted some pictures. I like to stay in my little burg. bit of a homebody now that I'm older, which is weird because when I was younger, I was a go out all the time. From being a kid to living in Los Angeles, I went out just about every night to my own detriment. Very much to my own detriment. So, number 2, what are your thoughts on the current recruiting class? Class better than you expected, worse, or about what you expected? I would say at this juncture, it's about what I expected going into the year. Maybe a little worse because we did the whole show yesterday on losing out on a bunch of guys. These are guys that I would have thought were going to be in the class at one point. So that's not ideal. I think it'll end up worse because I thought 2 5-stars for sure. In this particular class, they were in with enough of them. I know Jaden Davis fell out, but even guys like Dylan Stewart, who's now trending to Ohio State naturally, it felt like they had an in with a guy like that was going to stay at his position, unlike Nicholas Harbaugh, right? So it kind of felt like, okay, they're going to be able to get a guy like him or like a Ryan Wingo. They're going to be able to convince somebody. And right now it's not looking that great, but you know what? Here's the good news. Early signing day is it's before the college football playoff, but it's after the regular season. If Michigan goes 12-0 again, if Michigan wipes the floor with the Penn States and Ohio States of the world, you might be able to get back into some of these guys' ears a little bit if you stay diligent, but all depends. Number 3, how did Zuri do with the fireworks? Can Zuri make a guest appearance? Let's see. Zuri. I don't know if she's going to come or not. She was in here at the start of the podcast, but here she comes. She loves fireworks. She is the weirdest dog ever. I took her for walks during the fireworks because she wanted to hear and see them. And she, when people were doing little fireworks, like, personal ones, she would like bark at them, and she really enjoyed them. So she's a weird one in pretty much every way. She gets scared of things she shouldn't be scared of, like me opening windows, but loves fireworks. Absolutely loves the fireworks. So here she is on film getting a little bit. Now she's off frame now, but she's still on my lap. So yeah, she's a weird one. She loved the fireworks. So I took her out specifically during the bulk of it, both on July 3rd and July 4th. KRTF Farmwork 84. What kind of year do you predict Colston Loveland will have? Any chance he leads the team in receiving? Seems like people aren't talking about him enough. I don't know that he'll lead the team in receiving. I could see him being like the number 2 or 3 guy. I would hope he's more like 3 or 4 personally. I could see him being a 500-yard guy. I mean, heck, he could be beyond that because he is more of a, pass catching tight end. And there's all these predictions that he'd be better than even Jake Butt, even by Jake Butt himself. But I think he's going to have a breakout year and become a household name. I don't think he'll necessarily be Brock Bowers, but I think he's going to be in that conversation. Finishing us out because Spencer Whitmore, the newly added member of the Leaders and Best, chose not to partake in this week. Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. How much more development does Michigan have to show to start getting top recruits? Don't get some commitments. I don't know if that cut off or not. Don't get some commitments. Where are you at here? Oh, don't get some where they go. Okay, I read that wrong. I didn't read that with the right inflection. Wrong inflection on the wrong syllable. I don't know, because Michigan's turned quite a few 3-stars into draft picks. They've turned some 4-stars into first rounders as well as 3-stars, right? Right now, there's predictions that they'll turn another 3-star and Chris Jenkins into a first round draft pick. You'd think that there'd be 5-stars that are like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. I don't get it. Personally, I don't get it. Especially with the last 2 years' success. I mean, I understand why Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, why they recruit as well as they do, considering they've had the long found efforts. But it's just amazing to me. Michigan hasn't exactly been bad in the last 9 years and 8 years going into Jim Harbaugh's 9th. They've had one bad year. They've had a couple of disappointing years, but otherwise it's been right there where you would expect them to have a little bit more success. All right, we are going to continue on here in just one moment. But first, take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets. That's up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under or to who do you think is going to have the first home run. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. The most important thing. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. It's another dark, dreary day here in Michigan. It's been not the summer of fun when it comes to the weather. Partially, thanks a lot, Canada. Talking to you, Canada, Mike. And Danielle, not to leave you out. Let's blame it on Brittany. These are all inside jokes that only like 4 people get, and they probably aren't watching or listening. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to our Victor's Valiant. Clark at Blue for Life 8. Whose draft stock do you think rises the most this year from all the players that chose to come back for their senior season? Mike Sainer still. I think Mike Sainer still would really, because people say like, oh, he could go to the draft. I'm not 100% sure that he would have been drafted. I thought he had a draft worthy season, certainly, but he's just one of those guys that I feel like he needs another year of prove it because he's been playing receiver. He was kind of underwhelming at receiver, despite it being like all the hype that was surrounding him coming into the 2019 season and beyond. And then has an incredible year at nickel. So nickel is obviously a very niche position, but I think that Mike Sainer still, if he goes out and has it literally the identical year to what he did last year, and acting like players don't get better year over year, especially after making a position switch, I think he'll be a guy that goes 5th round or higher. Could see him being a 3rd rounder, a la Jordan Lewis. I absolutely could see that. James Kovalevsky at Coach_Kovo. You've talked about how Michigan has had a lot of success with 3-star recruits. Have you seen any common threads with these guys that exceed expectations, like position group or part of the country? Part of the country, I mean, partially Southern guys, but not necessarily. I mentioned Josh Metellus. Some of them are because I think Josh Uche was one of those mixed ones. I want to look that up real quick. I think he was one of those guys that was a 3-star to some and a 4-star to others. I think. I wish I would have typed in this a little bit better, but he would be one where I would kind of say again, yeah, he was a 3-star. Ended up being a 2nd round pick. He was just a straight up 3-star, 701 in the country. Another Florida guy. I think they've seemed to have had better luck with some of the Florida type players here. Let's take a quick look. I'm looking at 2016. We're going to go from the bottom up guys that are making. I mean, Sean McCune wasn't drafted. He was a 3-star, but he's on the Dallas Cowboys still. Josh Metellus was 719 in the country. Josh Uche was 701. Lots of character misses here. Khalid Hudson was drafted. He was a 3-star at 376. Chris Evans was a 4-star. So out of all of those, Nick Eubanks, again, not drafted, but has made some rosters. So Florida, Pennsylvania, Florida, Massachusetts, as far as that. So that's 2016. 2017, do the same thing. 2017's not quite as good a glass as 2018, which is where we'll stop here. Brad Robbins, 2-star as a punter, obviously drafted. Ben Mason, not drafted, but made a roster. Connecticut, Kwity Paye, Rhode Island, 3-star. Let's see. Now we're into the 4 stars already. So 2018 is probably the most elucidating. So as far as region and all that, Florida a little bit, but Jake Moody was not rated. The kicker out of Michigan. Anyway, not with a number associated to his ranking. Ronnie Bell, not rated, 3-star out of Missouri. Hassan Haskins, drafted, 3-star out of Missouri. Luke Schoonmaker, 796 in the country, out of Connecticut. Let's see. A lot of these guys are still playing either for Michigan or elsewhere. And then we get into the 4-stars. So I guess not even Florida would necessarily explain it. I think it's a mentality, it's a culture fit, and it's development. And that's, I think, the best way you can essentially look at it. Second question, I've been listening to North Lane over the last 2 months. I like the album Alien a lot. What is your favorite? I'm glad to hear that. That's my favorite metalcore band. Alien is probably 1B to Mesmer, which is my 1A. Something about Mesmer is just like, because Citizen's probably my favorite song. But I mean, Alien has Bloodline, it has Talking Heads, it has Sleepless, it has Free Fall. I mean, Alien's so good. I don't know, Alien probably is my favorite. So I'm glad to hear that. Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. After hearing Bellamy on John Jansen's podcast, which of the 2 returning starters has the bigger year, CJ or Roman, or could Tyler Morris step right in for Ronnie Bell and rock the boat? I mean, I think Tyler Morris could step in. Who do I think it'll end up being the number 1 receiver? Cornelius Johnson. Who do I hope is the number 1 receiver? Roman Wilson. He just said all the same stuff. And we'll get into more Roman Wilson later, but he said all the stuff about Roman Wilson that's basically confirms my belief in him. So I hope it's Roman, but I mean, it could be a situation where all 3 have 700-800 yards, maybe more, maybe less. Obviously, you hope they all have more than 700-800 yards, but that's Michigan hasn't necessarily any. I'm not factoring in tight ends here or other receivers, but Michigan needs to step up the passing game. So we'll see. I'm not the one at William Cawthorne 9. Can you explain NIL to me a little? Like, why isn't NIL the same for the entire athletic department? Honestly, it's not my area of expertise. I mean, I don't know. This is, I think, the correct answer for me here. I've had my head buried in the sand as much as possible with NIL, even though I have literally been involved with multiple NIL events, whether it was the Blake Corum Q&A, the Wolverine photo shoot Sarah and I recently did. Again, shout out to Scott. Or even just I have various things with Valiant. You'll see some of my pictures of football cards and stuff like that. That said, I still don't know because I haven't really delved too deep into it. I'm kind of waiting to kind of understand the structure a little bit more, and I haven't dug in on it, to be honest. If offered a job with one of our rivals, do you think one of the coaches takes the job? I think it depends on what the job is. I mean, it's possible. Pay raise and promotion, right? Like, it's certainly possible. It depends on the situation. I don't think that Michigan State's a very attractive job right now. But I think that Ohio State certainly is. And certainly we've seen that. Al Washington, who went to Ohio State. I told you back in, and I'm glad to hear others. I can't remember if it was Sam Webb or if someone else has been telling a story more publicly. But I told you back in 2019, or maybe it was 2018. No, it must have been 2019 because he had already left. That's when he left. That he had severe second thoughts, had doubts about going to Ohio State and attempted to kind of come back. So, but didn't work out that way, obviously. But so it all depends on who it is and how much and what the role is and what your connection to the school or the head coach is. Right now, I don't know that Michigan doesn't have anyone that has direct ties to Ryan Day like some have at the moment, I don't believe. And or Ohio State. So I don't know, but certainly it's possible. Leon Adams at LL Adam. How can Michigan close better with the 5-star recruits? That's what's missing in my eyes if I want to beat Georgia or Alabama. Do you think we need to open up the offense to help Bellamy recruit the top wide receivers? That's another thing, not just the quarterback, but yeah, I think they need to show that Michigan utilizes wide receivers. I think it's probably really easy if you're an Ohio State coach. Not that Michigan's recruiting against them in terms of wide receiver these days. Not really in head-to-head, but I think I think anyone in Ryan Wingo's ears probably saying, well, how much does Michigan really utilize their wide receivers? Last time they had a 5-star, Don Peoples-Jones, he was not really a big factor. So, I do think that. As far as how can Michigan close better with 5-star recruits, I would just say they got to push harder earlier. Make them say no instead of like, I think we maybe hopefully put ourselves in a good position. Let's just wait and see as they go and travel around the country and get all these other offers. NIL probably needs to be a bit more competitive, but they're working on that. Sean Steitz at Sean Steitz 16, and I forgot to copy Mark up. So Mark Zimke, you're going to be up in here too before we move on. I think I lost you in the mix here. Oh, I lost a couple guys in the mix here. So, all right. Apparently I just skipped over a couple people. Sean Steitz is Sean Steitz 16. Where do we stand with Brian Robinson and Jordan Shipp? I would say Brian Robinson to Kentucky, Jordan Shipp to Michigan. Those are my top 2 remaining 24s. Why are more people not at least mildly concerned with consistently missing out on top defensive tackles, offensive tackles, and wide receiver talent, the 5-stars? I've seen a pattern, and we have not landed a 5-star defensive lineman since Rashawn Gary. I know that's kind of crazy, right? It seems like with the track record Michigan's had, you'd think after Aiden Hutchinson, someone would be like, I want to be like that. Granted, she was coached by Sean Nua. Sean Nua left, and that's probably part of it. But as far as, it is a concern, but as long as you're still recruiting those positions relatively well, which they are, 4-star defensive tackle like Trey Pierce, pretty good. The multiple 4-star offensive tackles, pretty good, right? They've done what they've done without having 5 stars. So it would be nice, but that's not what they've gotten yet. All right, my apologies for missing a couple here. Ike Hamlin at Hamstand 87. You think Michigan would let Zuri bring out the game ball? I can start a Twitter campaign. That would be a disaster for everybody. She would probably just run around like a psycho, pee in the middle of the field, and continue running around like a psycho and just bark a lot. Probably deflate the game ball, wouldn't run it all where it's supposed to go. She's not good at fetch. She's good at going and getting sometimes. A lot of times it's you throw it and she starts after it and then stops and turns back like, okay, what do you want me to do with that? Anyway, actual question. What's the one non-conference opponent you want in the future? LSU. Because Oklahoma was my number 1. They're on the schedule. LSU. Michigan's not played LSU ever. I want LSU on there. I would also love to have Alabama and or Georgia. I really, those SEC schools, I want to go to the SEC schools. I wish that Florida was like a home and home, because I would have loved to see Florida in the big house. I'd love to go down to the swamp. I certainly believe there's an allure to the Southern football, and the South in general just holds some intrigue for me. So that I want LSU though. I mean, that would just be incredible. Mark Zimke at Mark Zimke finishing us out. What weird timing on your Roman Wilson article. I had this question pre-written. Other than Roman Wilson, what 4 players do you anticipate having a breakout season in 2023? All right. Ernest Hausman. I think a lot of them don't count as breakouts, right? Because like we expect Chris Jenkins to be really good. I mean, he's got a 1st-round draft grade at the moment. Ernest Hausman, Kenneth Grant. I'll say Darius Clemens because I just think he's got the body and the ability. And let's see. Who else? It's hard to pick some of them because some of them are behind other guys who have broken out already. We'll go Keon Sab. I think he'll break into the rotation. He'll be pretty good. We'll talk more about him momentarily. Let's continue on in just a minute. All right, we've got a ton of questions left here. We're going to try to lightning round it. We got about 5 minutes to get all of these through. And there's a lot. So let's do it with Owen Postel at Owen_Postel. I am having a very difficult time speaking today. Which of the sophomore DBs makes the biggest jump? That's where the Keon Sab question is re-answered. I again remember former 5-star, dropped down into being like still a really high 4-star. I think he and Zeke Berry. I mean, I've been high on Zeke Berry, but I feel like Keon Sab. I mean, they both showed some stuff in the spring games. I just feel like Keon Sab's going to be the guy. So I think he's going to make the biggest jump. I don't know how much Miles Pollard or Cody Jones is going to get the chance. And so I think it's between the two. I mean, I guess Omarion Walker could be that guy, right? Because he didn't come in as a DB. So it could be Omarion Walker. I think that's what Michigan's hoping for. But I'll go with Keon Sab. Brandon Jones at Old Brando. I love that name. After Corum's injury last year, Harbaugh said there was no structural damage. We now know that wasn't true. Was that simply gamesmanship? Should we basically disregard all future injury updates? I think that was probably the prevailing thought at the time. And I think that they found out it wasn't true. I think when Harbaugh said it, I don't think it was necessarily true as far as the intel they were getting at that moment. But yeah, I mean, generally disregard all future injury updates. That's usually good. Unless it's coming from someone with inside knowledge as far as Harbaugh saying it. Unless he's like saying, hey, this guy's shut down. Also, why was TCU able to run the ball so well on us when almost no one else could? Because they really sold out trying to they sold out trying to stop the pass so much and weren't devoting as much to the run as far as I remember. I haven't rewatched that game, so I couldn't tell you with a great degree of certainty. That's kind of what I felt in the moment. Expo 67 Nordique. At Nordique, that is, rather. Will we see an Alex Orgy package? I feel like I get this every week. I hope so, because he's got a size that you can't teach. And I think it would be good to take some pressure off of JJ, but as long as they aren't fully predictable with it. Z at Z_Hilliardo. Based on his history with other guys, how will Kirk Campbell's philosophy change with JJ from what we saw with Weiss? I think he's got his own philosophy. I don't think that his philosophy will change. I just think that he's going to maybe be a departure from Weiss in just the way that he interacts with JJ. Keeping in mind, Kirk Campbell was kind of the one that JJ wanted to get the position, and he's got it. It seems like that was his handpicked quarterbacks coach. So I don't know exactly what. I think that's one of those things we'll find out more about in fall camp rather than what we saw in spring ball. And probably more so into the season. It's going to be hard to really tell until we see it in action per se. Michigan 445-23, like that, at Wolverine Wise. Quick comment and question. Just want to say I haven't missed a show in 5+ years and love the content. Wow, that's dedication. I more than appreciate that. Thank you very much. Just created this account so I could post questions. Really appreciate that as well. If you were in charge of the Beat Georgia drill, how would you structure it? So Michigan's Beat Ohio drill, I believe, is like a 9-on-7 drill. And I would probably do something similar, but make it a little bit more heavily predicated on the run game and the quarterback run. Now, I think the big question is, and they'd have to go and see what Carson Beck is going to look like if he is indeed the guy who ends up being the starter. But certainly Georgia's a little bit more of a mirror image of Michigan. So I don't think you necessarily need to completely change things up, because I think that they're running things schematically relatively similarly. I think it's more about toughness going up against, maybe more linebackers against linemen or safeties against linemen type things, right? Really, and getting the defensive components toughened up that much more, because they're going to bring size, they're going to bring speed. So I don't really know the best way to do that, but that's why I don't get paid to coach. Alexander at the Harris Empire. By the way, I do appreciate that question a lot, and that you all the praise there. Who is on Michigan's cornerbacks board besides Aaron Scott now that Terrion Nichols and Jameer Grimsley have committed elsewhere for the 2024 recruiting cycle? I don't know that anyone's necessarily emerged. I think we're waiting to see what Aaron Scott does, and then they'll go from there. They might still try to recruit him. and maybe Terrion still. I don't know. But I don't know that there's any obvious guys that have emerged. Let's see if we can look up who they've offered as far as that's concerned that haven't committed elsewhere. So there's some guys that clearly they're not going to get that they've offered out there. I don't think that they're in a good position for Xavier Brown from Mater Dei. Kai Bates was a guy I remember earlier, but again, a lot of these guys are committed. Most of the top choices, I would say a guy like Jeremiah Lowe. I remember when he was offered from Lexington, Kentucky. That would probably be your best other option at corner. But otherwise, I mean, you're looking at all of these names that Michigan has long kind of looked after, some that felt like they were good. I mean, they could try to flip maybe like one of the Kansas guys, Jalen Todd, who's from Southfield, or Austin Alexander. I don't think that some of the other guys that I would have thought that Michigan could have had, like Emilio Ogard, who committed to Wisconsin, I don't think they'd, based off of the very heightened way he committed to Wisconsin, which was actually really awesome, I don't think that they'd have much of a chance with him. So I think you're looking to maybe flip a guy after that. If you don't land Aaron Scott, you're probably looking at a program that maybe is in a little bit of chaos. Maybe they're about to lose their head coach, and then you try to make a late flip. But I don't know outside of that, to be honest. We've got 5 more. Yeah, 5 more. We're way over time. We're going to try to rush through these. My apologies. James Arnett at James Arnett 4. Why is it even, given Michigan's recent success, we still have a hard time getting 5-star recruits? I think that sometimes they haven't gotten in early enough. Sometimes when they make that offer, you look at the offer sheet and they've already gotten some of the top schools. Resonance is one. I don't know. Closing is the other, really. Don at Don MTU 83. Multiple times, hubris has been mentioned as one of the causes for the loss to TCU. Doesn't it seem that the coaching staff has gotten a little pushback for this? No, I don't think they've gotten a little pushback. I think everyone's I think they've gotten a pretty ample amount of pushback for it. It says especially after when they've only won 1 bowl game under Harbaugh. I can tell you why that's not I know that's the truth. It's not a fair characterization. They've only been really in 4 bowl games total that they've wanted to win. And they're 1-3 in those. I don't think they were beating Georgia last year, and they should have beaten TCU, and they should have beaten Alabama, probably. But otherwise, they didn't want to be there for some of them. So, Darren Graham at D_Graham 90. Do you think Justin Scott will pan out? Or do you think he may end up like the other 5 stars who recently went to that defense? I don't know. It's recruiting. It's never a sure thing ever. There's no surefire bets in recruiting. 5 stars are more likely to pan out than not. I'd probably bet that he will pan out. But does that mean he'll do well against Michigan? I don't know that that's necessarily true either. Patrick Hodgins at Patrick Hodgins 4. Biggest area of need remaining in the 2024 class: cornerback and safety. Easily just the defensive backs across the board. Also, what's the largest concern heading into the 2023 season? I would say wide receivers is probably the only place I have real question marks at this moment. Just because it doesn't really feel like everyone, it feels like there's guys who could break out. It's just a matter of Will Roman, Will Darius. If those guys break out, Cornelius is consistent, then they'll be in good shape. Run it back at M. Go Blue BA. Do we have a good basketball? This is closing us out. Good basketball transfer news coming. It sounds like they're on the verge of Jose Perez. It sounds like Michigan and Gonzaga are the 2. He's the guard from West Virginia. We'll see. Lockhart ended up committing to Ohio State, giving him another corner in the class. Is this good or bad for Michigan's chances to land Scott? It doesn't really matter. He's more of an inside. He's more of a slot corner. Nickel, so it doesn't really affect the recruitment of Aaron Scott. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back on Sunday with another episode. That is at least the plan. If not, we will reconvene next week and do the thing. Thanks for watching or listening. Peace.